G'day internet. We've been super busy at Purpose Built Moto, so I thought it was about time that we kick off a new series. This one, we're going to run you through the build of our new HQ, walk you through what we've been doing in terms of the renovation and kit out on our new shop, then we're going to get into the first build project out of this new place. We're going to be building an XS650 chopper and then taking you for a weekend ride adventure with me and the boys. Zooming out a little bit on what we do at Purpose Built Moto, we won't be focusing so much on the specifics of this bike build, but more of what we do day to day, showing you behind the scenes of what we get up to here at Purpose Built Moto. So let's get started on episode 1 of our new shop build. A few years ago, when we moved into our first place, I had no idea the requirements of what a motorcycle shop needed, especially doing heavy fab work. So with this build, I wanted to make sure we hit a few key points to make sure we could build great quality stuff and work a little bit better. So number 1 on that list was better workflow. Being able for me and Dylan to work together a bit more seamlessly and have these bikes moving a bit more smoothly through the shop. Number 2 was getting better storage. We have a lot of stuff floating around when we start to pull these bikes down, especially because we have so many projects going on at the one time. So having those things being able to be stored away and give us a nice clean work area to work within was really important. Number 3 was tooling up a bit more. Being in such a small space before, we didn't really have the room to have all the tools that we needed. So this time around, we're getting a bit more equipment, some better tools to make sure we can build better quality bikes. Number 4, and arguably the most important, was really good lighting. In our old shop, we were basically working by candlelight, which was horrible. With the fine work that we do, it's super important to have good, even lighting, and also color correct. Being an electrician in my previous life, I've installed color correct and super bright lighting in this workshop, so when it comes down to the finer stuff, we're not working in the dark. That said, let me start to run you through some of the specific stuff we've done to build this place into my ultimate bike workshop. Starting at one of my favorite bits of this whole setup is our Fab Lab, aptly named by our fabricator Donnie. So what we needed was to have a separated work area where we could do heavy fab work that really gets dirty. So grinding on frames all day, cutting tanks out, doing sheet metal modifications, all that sort of stuff happens in here. It allows us to firstly keep all the mess contained in one little space and have all the tools we need within a very close proximity. It's sort of like setting up a kitchen. If you ask anyone that knows what they're doing, you got to have your fridge, sink and the cooktop all within a step of each other, which is exactly what we've done in here. So we've got the SWS AC/DC TIG, got the bandsaw, a bench grinder and linisher, as well as the polishing wheels, a drill press and our welding and jig table here. Set up with all the tools that we need to get dirty. Close this room up, chuck the exhaust fans on and you can work all day in here undisturbed, and outside you don't get any of the mess. So coming out of the fab room, we're moving into the main workshop floor area. Got our material racking here that we built in, small squares that fit all of our gear with our exhaust couplings and bend stuff on top. Last shop we had a bit of trouble getting grinder dust and a bit of sea spray on it because we were so close to the beach. So enclosing this stuff this time is going to keep it all nice and clean and good for when we need it. Got our finger brake 3-in-1 thing over here. We use that a lot for bending sheet metal and little flat bar pieces when we're sort of hand fabricating tail tidies and bracketry, anything like that. On the floor, you probably can't really see it, but we've got a set of 4 bolts that we use for bolting down our mandrel benders and stuff when we're doing subframes. Big welding table, one of these is pretty essential, so a nice flat steel surface to work from with a bench chucked on the end. And then we got our lathe. All of our tooling and stuff is in here, sandpaper, all that sort of gear is stashed neatly away in lockers this time around. The lockers were a really good buy for us. And then our shop press, a few of our benders, and hopefully one day soon we're going to be getting ourselves a mill drill. Moving through the shop, we've got a bit of open floor space here. You always have random jobs come in that don't often need a workbench. So We've left a bit of open space where anything can happen over here. We'll have our little meeting table in the corner. We're going to set up a nice timber tabletop for that Motul drum we got there. And then coming through into our bike bay area. So a couple of hydraulic lift tables. We can get things done nice and clean in here with everything locked away in the fab room. Soon enough, I'm going to have a couple of SP Tools toolkits decking this place out, and that little portable welding table is going to get shifted over into the corner. This little portable welding table was an awesome bit of gear that we set up before we moved. So we had an offcut from our jig table that we set up with a little TIG welder, and this thing just gets moved around for tiny little jobs, whether we're doing a bit of fender bracketry, building a subframe, or a little tail tidy, something like that. Right on a bench, you can just wheel this thing right over to next to where you're working. So we had a little bit of unused space. We decided to box it in for a little storage room. You might recognize this from our old shop. We had to bring a little memento with us to sort of remind us of where we've come from. So the sticker door got dragged down here and set up. Inside this storeroom, I'm going to set up a couple of bike lockers. A really important thing for us, and something that we struggled with at the old shop, was when a bike like this comes down and is completely ready for tear down, you just have parts everywhere. So this will enable us to store the bike parts in tubs below, hang a frame from the roof, hang the tanks on the side, and store the wheels from the bike there as well, alongside the suspension and stuff like that, keeping everything catalogued and nice and tidy in one main spot. So I've set up a sheet metal storage rack. Sheet metal is such a pain in the ass to do because it can either take up a lot of flat space, or if you get smart about it, like I think I've done, it can take up fuck all space. So these racks swing off chains. You got aluminium, mild steel, and then a little bit of stainless and plate down the bottom there. And then when you don't need it, it's folded all nicely up against the wall. Got my little blaster there. I got to replace that thing. It's pretty toast. Some small sheet metal offcuts stored up on these racks here, alley, stainless, and mild at the back, and then a little parts washer too. This room still has to be a little bit better kitted out, but we'll come back to that in episode 2. Once we got the racking in, I'll sort of run you through how those lockers are going to work. Needless to say, I'm super pumped with how this whole place has turned out, and a big part of that is the workshop floor. In our old shop in Mermaid, we were dealing with cracked concrete and torn up lino. It was a mess. So when we moved down here, I got in touch with the guys from GC Flaked Floors. Steve came down and knocked out this whole place in a matter of just over 2 days, which I was super impressed with. We went with an epoxy flake setup, which hides a lot of the mess that we make during the day, but when we're finished, we can clean it out and start a new day with a fresh, clean workshop, which is super important for me. I believe that if you're going to make anything of quality, you need to work out of a good space. This sort of place, setting it up nice and clean, really reflects where we are right now and also where I want the place to go. Another thing that I sort of worked pretty hard on was the sign up above the roof here. So I got the shop logo laid out on a big bit of steel, water jet cut, and then backed it with some nice opaque acrylic. That sign up there actually splits in half and opens to the gate upstairs, which is where we store all of our e-commerce parts. The headlights, buttons, indicators, all that gear is stashed up the top now. You'll also notice these cantilever brackets. I've been working with my mate Caleb, who you might remember from last series, the dude behind the desk at United Tools. Gave me a big hand putting these timber pallets together so I can tie a bike down to it that's not going to get worked on in a little while, stash it up in the roof. It's a good way of getting some bikes off the floor, and it'll look pretty nice once it's done up there too. All right, one luxury we did not have at the other shop was a separated office. So when the opportunity came that I could put an office upstairs, separated from the boys when they're getting rowdy down here, I jumped at it. Got myself a nice little 10 light door here. Stairs I painted up in a Rhino Ute liner. I wanted something black, but I didn't want like shitty paint to be getting chipped off when we're up and down these all day. So it's a polyurethane spray-on stuff that people use in the back of their trucks. Super hard wearing, looks rad, so I'm really happy. Eventually, we're going to be putting a bit of a wall of fame along the stairway. I got some picture frames and stuff, and just a bunch of the stuff that we've done with Moto Social, Gentleman's Ride, Wide of the Mark, and Handcrafted, the crew and stuff behind that. I like to see those faces that I enjoy working with on the daily, so those will be getting hung up here. And this is our little getaway space. So this was the major part of the renovation, was building this mezzanine. I had a chippy mate of mine land it from Recce Carpentry, come up, he did most of the job here along with DJG Projects. So we set ourselves up a little sort of work area slash hangout lounge. I have a habit of kicking on after the pub with the boys and my partner's getting sick of it. So we built this place to be partied in when I can't go home. A few little random desks around the place just so we don't have to get stuck in this little office. And this is a little boom room. So this is standing on top of the fabrication room downstairs. So this was all newly built, lined out and insulated so you don't cop a heap of noise from the workshop downstairs. So I had Recce chuck in some floor to ceiling windows, and then probably my favorite part is this glass corner over here. While I'm sitting up here doing the biz, I can look down into the workshop and make sure everything is up to spec from the top level. What the fuck is he doing? Anyway, so that's the office that we work out of. That's about all we got for episode 1 on this series. I hope you got a little bit of insight into the way we set up this new shop and how we're going to be working out of it. In episode 2, we're going to be going through the absolute final touches, getting a few of our toolboxes in and gearing up a little bit better. From there, we're going to be building a new project. So we're starting on an XS 650 chopper. This thing's going to be a personal project of mine. I worked super hard to get this new shop off the ground, so I figure I've done a good enough job to deserve a new bike. What we're going to be doing with this one is sort of taking a little bit more of a broad approach to this project, showing you guys the day-to-day of what we do, not just the technical details of this build. So I hope you're going to enjoy it, and we'll see you next time for episode 2. Generally, this is the part where your favourite YouTuber is going to ask you to subscribe to their Patreon. Luckily for you, we're not YouTubers. We're bike builders and parts makers. So if you like the content we create and the bikes we build, or you hate both of those things and just want to grab some gear for your next project, make sure you show your support, jump on our online store and give your bike that purpose-built moto touch. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.